Welcome to a Wolverine Chronicle exclusive segment, Behind Enemy Lines. I'm very excited for this episode. We're going to be reviewing the UNLV Michigan game that's going to be week 2 in the upcoming 2023 football season, and I am here with our special guest, Tony Cordasco. Tony's done some play-by-play for UNLV, among other things. Tony, how you doing?
Doing just great. Thanks for having me on the show. I know we're just, a few months out here, September the 9th, right? But it's already starting to cook, man. Like everyone's ready. And I know here in Las Vegas, we'll have the Mountain West Media Days. I don't think that the Big Ten is doing it right, because our media day will be at Stadium Swim at Circa Hotel Casino, which is that beautiful pool with all the sports and the sports book, and of course some other great sites there as well. But yeah, ready to go. They're having camps here in Vegas over the weekend. I think UNLV, according to their tweets and alerts, I think they signed 3 more players. And I think the story here is after spring, the new head coach, Barry Odom, who was the head coach at Missouri previously, and his last stop was as defensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas. Man, they are working like overtime recruiting. They've added 21 new players, new faces to the roster since the end of spring practices. So this will be an entirely new look. And then I think his major focus, to be honest with you, Michael, is just focusing on the local high schools, because when Barry Odom was an assistant coach, defensive coordinator at Arkansas, he was here a lot recruiting high school players. So he has, some pretty good pipelines established with 36 high schools here in the city, and trying to keep a lot of this talent here at home. So it's been a very busy summer, off season, if you will, for UNLV football. And it's going to be, I think, an exciting time here in Las Vegas.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk about UNLV football. And, when it comes to Michigan fans, as soon as basketball season ends, we start looking at football season. So even though it's a few months away still, we're already dissecting these non-conference games that are coming up. Excited to learn about UNLV. So let me just jump right in and ask you, what do you expect to be the position group that is the strongest for the Rebels this upcoming season? Like, which position group is the strength of this team?
Just based on everything that I saw at spring practices, the strength will have to be the secondary. And they've even added more pieces, I think, in the aftermath of spring football. There's a lot of talent, a lot of returning lettermen already. There's, I think, 20 DBs, I think, currently or more on the roster. They're not done yet, as I said. And I think they have so much depth. And one of the players, in fact, Jure Williams, who is an emotional leader for this team, he's really just high octane. He just plays with a high ticker and intensity. Jure Williams during spring, and again, he's just 5'10", I think, maybe pushing it about a buck 80. And they had him playing at strong side linebacker during the spring. He's basically going to be your nickel in the 3 down lineman package, I think. But they've just got some good coverage guys. They brought in some new players. Joanne Claiborne is a kid from Las Vegas that went to Bishop Gorman High School, and he just transferred back in due to the health issues that his mom has, and I think he's going to contribute. You've got some good players. Jalen Frazier from North Carolina State. We're not like recruiting players, that are from mid-majors or what have you. Currently, they're going for the big-time players, or players that are cast-offs, from other programs that just didn't seem to fit. And they have some really good players, I think, that are going to contribute in that secondary. Cam Oliver was a player that's returning. He had 2 pick sixes last year at one of the cornerback spots. On and on. I mean, I just can't talk enough about the type of depth and the way that they came together and played. I think that's going to be the strength of this defense. But again, in that basic 3-4 scheme, or variations of it, as we know, you're going to have to get some pressure from the interior as well and the players in the box to make the job easier for the secondary. But I'd have to say, for sure, that's going to be the strength of this UNLV Rebel football team.
Now, when I was doing some preliminary studying of UNLV, I came across a guy named Noel Williams who led the team in interceptions last year. Is he returning or did he depart?
He left the program. Yeah, he went into the transfer portal. I think Noel went to Cal, so he's gone. They lost some players, and they still have a ton of depth here. And I just think that this is a team that is going to, again, rely on big plays in their secondary, coming up with, picks and making some big plays that can turn games around, hopefully. I think that's what Coach Barry Odom, who is a defensive-minded coach, I think that's what he's looking for. And then he brought in Mike Shear, who he actually recruited. He brought him to University of Missouri. He had him as an analyst. He later was position coach at Arkansas, linebackers coach, and now he's a defensive coordinator here. So he and Odom are going to work, I think, together an awful lot on structuring the defense. And I think they're going to just give the keys, if you will, to the offense to Brendan Marion, who's an outstanding coach. He's got something called the go-go offense, and that's going to be, if everything that we saw in the spring and stuff that I've seen on film. And he was the offensive coordinator, Coach Marion, at Howard, the team that beat UNLV, that upset UNLV, the biggest upset, I guess, based on point spread. Can we talk about that? In college football history. And I was actually broadcasting that game, and it was just the biggest downer ever. But yeah, so he beat UNLV. Coach Marion went to Pitt, and he had the wide receiver core there, including Addison there, the wide receiver. Went to Texas, and now he's becoming, an offense coordinator here. So I think those are some key pieces. New coaching staff. Things are coming together a lot quicker, I think, than we thought they might, because the former head coach, Marcus Arroyo, was fired right after the season, a season in which the Rebels went 5-7, were very close to a bowl game, and then he was fired. And then just right after the new year, Odom came in, and he missed that early signing period. They made up a lot of time. Really very fast and quickly. And they did get some recruits in the early signing period, but now they're starting to really cook, and they've been out there. And they're not just recruiting locally, they're recruiting also a lot of Power 5 players.
Well, you mentioned that Howard upset against UNLV. Us Michigan folks understand being on the unfavorable side of massive upsets. That Appalachian, it just haunts us, that Appalachian State win. But it's, you mentioned the DBs and the secondary potentially being a strength of the team, and that could actually be a favorable matchup, because if any position group could be considered a weakness on Michigan's team, I think a lot of people would choose the receiver group. And so seeing how that secondary matches up with the receivers will be interesting. But speaking of team weaknesses, let's dive in a little bit. Do you think that there's a position group that maybe could be considered the weakness of this team?
Yeah, there sure is. And that's going to be the offensive line. They lost one of the key players who was returning. It was Preston Nichols, who transferred to Purdue. See, around here, if you're a good player, you're going to get poached by the majors, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, with NIL and everything else, he gets, that call. And so he winds up at Purdue. So now they have to fill the void there. Not a ton of experience. They did bring in some other players from outside. Will Thomas, I think, an offensive tackles coming in from New Mexico State. You've got some other good players. I think the new center for UNLV will be Jack Haas. And Haas is a player that transferred from the University of Buffalo. And then I just think that offensive line, the left guard now will be Jalen St. John, who had a pretty decent spring. He's an Arkansas transfer. But the Rebels do have a couple of returners. Again, with Doug Brumfield being a left-handed quarterback, blindside would be the right side tackle. Tiger Shanks has had an up and down career for UNLV, and he just needs to stabilize. And then Marcus Miller is the left side tackle. They have another returnee at the right side guard, and that is Amani Trigg Wright. And so they do have some returnees, but we don't know about the quality, and nor is there a ton of depth behind that offensive line. The one good thing that you could say positively is that with the new offense, the go-go offense, go, they're going to go very, very quick. They're going to go fast, and they might not have to sustain their blocks as quickly if they're getting rid of the football, on quick patterns, on quick outs, passes over the middle and what have you. I think that they could work. They've worked on the blocking schemes, and hopefully they don't put them in a position when it comes to run blocking. Then that might be my greatest concern for this upcoming season. But I really do believe that that's the area that they really do need to pick things up. And I'm just curious to see what they're going to do, what that O-line and how it holds up during the season.
Well, if the O-line is a little bit thin, then you're going to be looking to, I guess this go-go offense is a little bit of a speed and space, get out of the, get the ball up the field fast. So who do you anticipate being the, number one impact player? Who's the guy on the offensive side of the ball that the Michigan coaching staff is going to need to focus on the most?
Well, if he's upright, everything's going to be great for UNLV, and that's the quarterback, Doug Brumfield. And I went out there to spring practice on the first day, and they brought him in for interviews. And I said, Doug, did you have another growth spurt? And he goes, yeah, how can you tell? He's like towers over everyone. He went from 6'5", now he's maybe over 6'6". I mean, he's just the tallest guy out there. He's a very athletic quarterback, but he likes to run, and he gets himself in danger when he does that because he exposes himself. And part of this offense, of course, pretty much, I think, when you look at the offense under Coach Marion, it's an offense that's predicated on a lot of motion and then also, trying to find those mismatches there in the secondary and see who moves and who covers and what have you. And then there's two backs. So the quarterback, Brumfield, will be standing there with two backs, to either his left or right. And sometimes they'll split them, but mostly when you see their formation, it's going to be with two backs to one or to one side or the other. And so he's appeared, Brumfield, in 10 games. He's thrown for 1,898 yards, completes 65% of his passes. And when Coach Brennan came in here, Coach Brennan came in here, I should say Marion, and the first thing he saw when he was evaluating film was that the way that Brumfield was most effective was in no huddle. He said, he throws 65% regularly, but man, his completion rate goes up. He gets into a rhythm, and he's able to run the ball more effectively. So they're going to do a ton of no huddle. And I just think, again, you just have to worry about the quarterback and his health and if he can sustain getting through a lot of hits this season. And that's how he got the player most likely to be catapulting himself and doing a somersault over the goal line like we saw last season is Doug Brumfield. And, back issues, man, it just, you expose yourself up front in your rib cage and everything else. So we just hope he can make it through the season. I really would like to see Doug Brumfield very healthy during the course of this season.
Well, yeah, when you've got a quarterback that's that athletic, but the offensive line is letting these guys through, it gets a little exciting, when you get these guys out running in space. And so my question for you is, can Brumfield throw on the run? Is he accurate if he's rolling out of the pocket? Is that in his skill set?
Yeah, definitely. Very much so. Yeah, it is. It's definitely in his skill set. And he does. He'll take off, though, a lot of the time. And that's the one thing. They just want to make sure that he just stays stable in the pocket when he has to throw the football. And just, again, try not to expose himself. But he's good on the run. He's great He can improv with the best of them. He had a 72-yard like scramble play last year where he threw, a pass downfield to Ricky White and he scored a touchdown. There's a lot of things that he can do, but it's a different team when he's in there opposed to when he's not. And you have a freshman right behind him in Jaden Maeva, who's a local product here from Las Vegas and just untested, unproven. He won the job to move up to number 2 in the spring, but you don't want to get to that point to where Brumfield has to be in the lineup every day.
Well, let's move it to the other side of the ball. Who's the guy on defense that's really going to be disrupting the Michigan offense the most? I know you said the secondary looks strong. Is the number one impact player on the defensive side going to come out of that secondary, or is there somebody in that front 7 that can do some damage?
Good question. No, it's going to be the linebacker in the Arkansas transfer, Jackson Woodward, who is pretty much the quarterback on defense. He's the player that is going to send the plays in, and he's worked. He's got the familiarity with both Coach Barry Odom and with Coach Scheer, Mike Scheer, the defensive coordinator, because they all came from Arkansas. And here was like a spot duty guy pretty much when he was at Arkansas, and he played sporadically. He got into every game, but he was a guy off the bench. He wasn't a starter. Not that that means anything, but he really proved his worth, and he stepped up in the Liberty Bowl. And so he played very well in that game, in the bowl game, because a lot of guys opted out. So he stepped in there. Scheer actually moved up because Odom was here in Las Vegas, and he was the defensive coordinator in that game. But he showed an awful lot. And then in speaking to Woodward, he is a guy that you'll think he'll be the next Mike Scheer. He'll be another coach, I think, for either UNLV or somewhere else, because he speaks like a coach. He definitely sees the game very well. And I just like his command of the defensive unit. What I saw in the spring, he's just a real heady guy, and I think he's going to help them out immensely.
Well, you mentioned the Liberty Bowl, and so that alludes to the fact that this team is no stranger to winning some games. And so let me ask you, Tony, where do you see them finishing in the conference this season?
Well, this will be the first year that we don't have the 2 division structure. So it's just one division.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's the first year for the Mountain West. And so, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like UNLV just needs to get wherever to a bowl game. I think that the schedule is pretty good after they play the Michigans and maybe the Vanderbilt game, but a lot of favorable games, I think, for UNLV. A lot of those games are here at home against the conference powers, if you will. And I just think that they're going to I'm hoping that they are bowl eligible. The total, they put an over-under on wins here in Las Vegas, and the total number is 6. So it's right at where they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
The last bowl game for UNLV was in 2014. So it's been forever. It's been 9 years. I know Michigan goes bowling every year, and now probably will be perennial Final Four team. But here in Las Vegas, we just want to get a team to the wire to any bowl game possible, and then just start from there. And hopefully, if the football program can pick things up, if basketball can continue to go in the upward trend, I think that, that would be very, very good for UNLV, a positive sign for UNLV moving into a bigger conference. That's eventually what they want to do. And here in Las Vegas, I mean, we're the home of winners other than the Rebel football team, but it's getting there. It's getting there because, There's a new football facility, new-ish, on campus. It's about 3 years old now, or 4 years old, and that's the Fertitta Football Conference, the center that we have here, the Fertitta Complex. And then the team is now playing at Allegiant Stadium, and so home of the Raiders. And we need to get more fans than just average like 16,000 a game. If the football team can win, the program can win, we'll get more fans, be more attractive, I think, to a lot of those other conferences. It's crazy because, right, the Mountain West has its conference media days here. The Pac-12 will have its media days here in Las Vegas as well this year for the first time. But they have their championship football game here. They have the Pac-12 basketball, men's and women's tournaments here, but they're stiffing us, man. If they're watching this or listening, come on, man.
Well, Vegas is a fun place for anybody to go to, and now that we've got USC and UCLA in the Big Ten, maybe they'll try to figure out a way to do some sort of convention or conference there in Vegas. But
it might be the
you
Pac-8
mentioned,
it might be the Pac-8 by the time they get here, next month.
right. I can't even keep up with conference realignment. I had no idea the Mountain West did away with divisions. I've spent all my energy trying to figure out what the Big Ten's going to look like next year. And then, of course, the college football playoff. And I mean, everything is changing so fast in today's college football world.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be a really good sign for a team like UNLV. You mentioned getting some wins underneath them, potentially moving into a larger conference, getting some Power 5 matchups. So let me ask you this. Finish this sentence. UNLV wins against Michigan if.
If maybe if Ricky White has another one of those breakthrough games like he did, I think 3 years ago, the wide receiver, when he was at Michigan State, he had 8 receptions for $146. And yeah, that was 3 years ago. And that was like here's a freshman there, just killing you guys in the big house. And that was the upset win. Michigan State went on to win, But yeah, that would have to happen.
We don't want to talk about that.
Right. That would have to happen. And hopefully, and UNLV's had some pretty good receivers, but they haven't had quarterbacks that could get the football to those players consistently. And so this could be the year for Brumfield. And then, UNLV would also have to establish the run. They'd have to run the football a lot better. They did. We lost here in Las Vegas, Aiden Robbins, who is an exceptional running back. He came here from Louisville. He had a great season. He got injured a little bit, but he had a terrific year, and he was a big back. And UNLV lost him to BYU. And so Vincent Davis comes in from the University of Pittsburgh. He's like a scat back guy. And then there's a guy named Donovan Lester from William and Mary, 6'2", and I think a little over 200. And so they have those big bruising back. And then you have, again, Vincent Davis, he runs hard. He's like a stocky kid. And then Courtney Reese, who's like your scat back, who returns from last year. And they have some other talent at running back. So the way that UNLV could beat you guys would be, well, the defense has to stop you, first of all. And we'll see how that works. It's crazy, right? Because the last meeting, 2015, Michigan won 28-7, and these are two much different programs than they were in 2015. Yeah. And so, yeah, for the Rebels to win, though, run the football, again, play turnover free, and then depend on big plays, hopefully from Ricky White and from Doug Brumfield.
And we'll do everything we can to stop Ricky White. I can guarantee you that.
They know who he is.
Turn the table. Yeah, oh yeah. Let me turn the tables here. So finish this sentence. Michigan wins if.
Michigan will win if the Wolverines, they'll win if they pay UNLV an extra $1 million, to maybe lay down. No, that's a joke. That's a bad joke. If Blake Corum obviously is back and healthy, it's a concern. It's stopping the run, I think. Again, you have the secondary. I'm just concerned, about the front seven, for UNLV and how that's going to materialize and what they're going to do to stop the run. First, this is a program, Barry Odom says, we need to run the football and stop the run. That's basically it. And so that's going to be, I think, the major key. And then just try not to get those Michigan fans behind the team with big plays, because we know it can happen there in the big house. And we've seen that happen before. And you want to see, a game of respectability out of UNLV. You want to make sure, because this is a big sandwich game, Bryant College comes in here for the opener. That's a nice game to have, just to prep yourself for Michigan a week early. But then after that, it's Vanderbilt here. So that's a step up. But Yeah, I'm just curious to see what this new look will be like, and all these players that are coming in. And last night, one of the I think one of the coordinators or someone had tweeted out that they got 3 more wins or whatever. I don't know, like 3 more players maybe, and I don't know if they're for this class or for the class of 24. UNLV in the class of 2024 so far, they have the best recruiting. They're number 1 in the Mountain West Conference, which is pretty good. I mean, that's really good. And again, it
Yeah.
just shows you where this program is headed. But I definitely believe in the coaching staff. They've been terrific to work with and to deal with. And I just hope, offensive, and Vegas wants to see a show, right? And so Brendan Marion, I think, can put on a show. He didn't show too many wrinkles or some of the things that he can do, but this is going to be a lot of fun. And I hope that there's some trickery there that you folks get to see in Michigan just to make it a more fun and entertaining game, right? I just think it could be a ton of fun, and UNLV will just be finding themselves in the early parts of this season with, an entirely new staff and all these new players. It's just a matter of how quickly they could come together.
Well, we still got a couple months here, so I'm not going to hold you to this, but can I get a score prediction out of you?
No.
If you had to put
Yeah,
a
just
number on
kidding.
it, what,
I
what
mean,
would
if
you
it-
expect the score to be?
So if UNLV could keep this game in the 20s, right, it improves their chance of winning. And I can just leave it at that. I don't know. There's so many unknown variables. Typically, I'm not shy to do this,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I think Michigan will win the game just based on what I see on paper. And I'm just concerned, again, about that offensive line and how they're going to run block and how they're going to protect Doug Brumfield.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, the major key. If they can hold up, if they come together. And again, there's not a ton of repetitions with all those guys. And typically when you have a good offensive line, they get a lot of repetitions together, right? Because they have to sense each other and what they're doing and how they're blocking and what the scheme does, right? So if they could come together, if the UNLV Rebels could keep this game in the 20s, then I think they have a good chance, not of pulling up off a big shocker, but just staying, within reach, which would be really nice.
Right.
And the 1.8 million doesn't hurt either. So
The 1.8 million doesn't hurt. And I tell you what, Tony, before we wrap up here, I'm going to hit you with one bonus question that wasn't in our show notes. It just came to mind. So you guys are in Vegas. There's a lot going on. I mean, it's the land of showbiz, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I'm curious, as far as the college athlete landscape goes, do you find it interesting or difficult for these guys, these youngsters that come, they're 17, 18, to 22 years old? Are a lot of these guys getting in trouble or having issues, with the Vegas scene, or is that pretty much not an issue?
it has not been an issue, to be quite honest with you. They regulated very well. And last season, I can speak for like going to high school football games on Friday nights when the team was in town. The guys would come out to high school games and hang out. And there's just a
Yeah.
good culture here, very good culture. And I think that they help each other out to stay out of, there's always going to be a knucklehead or two. Knock on wood, we haven't
Right.
had any issues here. Like we really haven't. And I can't even remember the last time, that something went awry with the football program and with the student athletes. And so, no, they've done a good job. They do try to, obviously, gambling is in their face, right? And so that's the one thing I
Yeah.
think that's a major concern too. And they do keep them away from all of that. They do have a lot of workshops and things of that nature where they talk to the players. We did have something on the sideline that I'm kind of miffed that they took out of there, though. So, like most of the schools have their celebratory, maybe a championship belt for turnover towels or what
Uh-huh.
I've seen also. Well, we had the slot machine on the sideline.
The slot machine. I
Yes.
remember that. I remember seeing that. They
It
got rid
was
of
the
that.
greatest device of all time. I would go down there actually and take a few spins because you couldn't lose on the thing, right? Anyway, before
Uh-huh.
each game, we would go down there and hang out like on the sideline and check it out. And after a turnover, the team would go over there, and it was so much fun. It really was a fun thing,
Uh-huh.
and it was so different and out there. So IGT, the manufacturer, they put together this big slot machine that cost like $50K, and it was on the sidelines. And then we found out that it won't be here anymore because I guess Gaming Control had some concerns, and there's always those Debbie Downers that are like, well, it's gambling and it's youngsters. No, come on, like lighten up. This is a fun thing that's not going to promote gambling, but it was just the most unique, like, turnover chain or what have you of any. What about who was doing like the turnover bottle service in Miami? Was it, who was that? They would bring out like bottle service.
Miami.
Well, maybe we should go back to
Miami
that. They have the chain, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. I want to do bottle service.
We do.
We've got like
we do sunglasses.
As you're staring at. So in the end zone, in the northern end zone of Allegiant Stadium, we have the Wynn nightclub. So it's like a nightclub where people are partying, and there's a DJ in there. So, but that's okay. Let's just maybe we need to cover that up. But you can't do the slot machine. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
That's a bummer.
It is a bummer because it was fun.
Right. It's an excellent visual too to see the guys run over there and play the slot. So that's too bad. Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait. Maybe we'll touch base again when the season gets a little bit closer. And for my listeners here, where can people find you if they want to follow you?
On Twitter, mostly at Tony Dasco. I have a lot of opinions, folks. And I've already tweeted out since I've been on Twitter over like 217,000 times. So let's say I'm active on there. I think that's the best place to find me. I'm on the air on Odyssey here in Las Vegas, 98.5, The Bet, Las Vegas. We could get away with the station called The Bet, but you can't put a stinking slot machine on the sidelines. So that's our station here that I'm on, and I do some other radio work, live streams, whatever, football, basketball, what have you here in the local community. But I'm excited about football season, and I always am, but this is going to be special, I hope. And man, 2014, the last bowl game, that's hard to believe. And then the folks here are wondering why no major conference is coming after UNLV. You got to win. You got to consistently win.
Got to win.
And you got to football, right? Number one, typically. Basketball's big in this town, so that program is about to get better and improve. But yeah, hopefully we'll be in a bigger conference too within the next couple of years. We could hope on that. And then, yeah, it'd be great to catch up once again. I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much.
Of course, and I can tell you I will be rooting for you guys to win every single game except for that game in Ann Arbor. That's the one game I won't be rooting for the Rebels, but hopefully you guys can get some wins on the board, and that'll strengthen our schedule up anyway as well.
Right.
Tony, again, thank you so much. For Tony Cordasco, I'm Michael Smeltzer signing off. Go Blue.
It's great to be a Michigan